Excuse me. And now, now it's much better. All right. So, thank you for tuning in, Profe Gayu. As I was just talking about, should you consider getting a second passport? Should you consider getting a second passport? Now, there are definitely many benefits of having a second passport. For those of you who have U.S. passports, I would not recommend renouncing your U.S. citizenship. I would not recommend that. But to each his own. If you were to do so, I'm sure you have your reasons. I know a lot of folks tend to renounce their U.S. citizenship for tax purposes because the U.S. will tax you no matter where you are in the world. But I'm going to get into that. But there is a way where they can tax you less. So I will get into that real soon. There are definitely a lot of countries where one can go to live and actually live there, not just stay there temporarily. Because I noticed that a lot of folks, DR included, a lot of folks come to DR and they don't come here as a with the intention of becoming a resident in DR, a legal resident, permanent resident, right? They come here a lot of folks come here on a tourist visa. Very normal here. They come here on a tourist visa and they stay indefinitely. And then when they leave, they pay the overstay fine. So that is definitely a norm here. But what has happened in DR, to a less extent though, what has happened in DR and what has happened a lot in other countries is when folks tend to stay the 30 days, the 60 days, and then they do a border run, they come back the same day or they come back the next day, a lot of countries, a lot of governments are getting hip to that, and they will say, no, we're not going to let you back in. Now, again, in the case of the Dominican Republic, that is very, very rare. It's happened, but it's very rare. So you could say it's unlikely that it will happen. However, it's happened here in the Dominican Republic, and it's also happened in other countries as well. I mean, I've heard stories in Thailand where that's happened, and I'm sure it's happening in other places as well. So, with that said, if you plan on living in another country, right, for an extensive period of time, it is in your best interest to find a country where you can actually go there, if not on one of those digital nomad visas, remote worker visas. A lot of countries have that where you can stay. Some countries have it to where you'll stay up to 6 months, right? And other countries will have it where you can stay up to a year. I know a lot of European countries do a year with the digital nomad visa. Some countries do 6 months. I mean, each country varies, right? But after that time is up, you gotta go. You gotta go. In some cases, you can renew, but a lot of countries will encourage, those folks, okay, you gotta move on, right? That's not permanent. So if you are the type of person where you want to travel and you have the ability to work on the move, it's in your best interest if you're going to stay an extensive period of time in a place to actually get a permanent residency and potentially consider getting a second passport. I mean, there's countries out there, let me think of some out there, Brazil, for example. You can get a permanent residency in Brazil if you have a child in Brazil. You can get a permanent residency, and after a year, you can get citizenship, right? There's other countries such as Peru. Peru, you can get a permanent residency based on your passive income. Same with Brazil, right? I think Brazil, it's about $1,500. Peru, I think Peru is even less, and I think Peru is maybe like 1,000 or something, or 1,200. Passive income. right? So you get a monthly passive income of that right there. You can actually use that to get a permanent residency, and after 2 years, you can apply for citizenship. Uh, what's also a short period of time? Argentina, same thing, $1,500 a month. You can get a permanent residency, and after 2 years, you can apply for citizenship. Ecuador has has a similar plan. I think Ecuador is 3 years, and they only require you to earn $1,000 a month. You have Panama, Costa Rica, which requires you to earn a little bit more. Uruguay, Chile. So you got a lot of these countries, Paraguay. Yeah, a lot of these countries that offer that, and even some countries in Asia as well that have similar programs. So if you plan on moving outside of the country or for any extensive period of time, it may be in your best interest to go the legal route to get that permanent residency, which would eventually lead to citizenship. Why is it good to have citizenship in another country? Because number one, if you want to move to a country, you can be there indefinitely. Come and go whenever you want. You may have a passport, a U.S. passport. You may have a Australian passport, where some countries you can't actually go to without having a visa. But with the other passport, you can actually do that. You say you are a citizenship of a country where it's a fragile state. And now when I say fragile state, I mean there's a scale where there are states that are unstable and states that are stable. And then there are states that are in the middle. So Dominican Republic, for example, is not considered unstable or stable. It's in the middle, but it's increasing, and more year after year, it's becoming a more stable state. Where you have Haiti, for example, Haiti is a very unstable state. So what I mean by that is, if you are a citizenship, if you have a citizenship in a country that is unstable, or it's in the middle where at any moment it could, when the government changes, it can be stable or unstable. It's good to have a plan B. It's good to have a plan B. It's good to have a second option where you can actually go someplace else. Even if it's not even a second passport, if you have a permanent residence in another country, at least you can be there indefinitely. Now, I know a lot of countries, they tend to have a time limit on how long you can stay outside of the country with that permanent residency. For example, I think the U.S. is 6 months. Like if you have a permanent residency within the U.S., you have to stay at least 6 months of the year within the country to maintain that permanent residency and to work towards getting citizenship. And some countries, such as I believe it's Portugal. Portugal, you got to stay 6 months. Some countries you only have to stay like a month. Some countries you only got to stay a couple of days a year or something like that. Like it just varies by the country to maintain that permanent residency. So what I'm saying is, if you are a traveler, like a real traveler, not someone who just go someplace for a week and then go back home, but a traveler where you are spending significant amount of time outside of your home country, you definitely need to get hip to this and figure out how you can do so without worrying about breaking any legal rules or time limit rules, etc., and still be able to spend a significant amount of time outside the country, travel, and be a part of a society outside of your home country. So, what do you all think? I mean, I got a couple of people on the line right now. What do you all think? Should you consider getting a second citizenship? Y para la gente que solo habla español, ¿tú crees que ustedes deben conseguir una segunda soberanía? So what do you all think? Anyone out there that want to share? I mean, I'll give you my thoughts. I think you should consider it if you plan to spend a significant amount of time outside of your home country. Definitely consider getting a second citizenship. But what do you all think? Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, tax benefit. Tax benefit. So, I know there's a few states like Florida, Texas, Delaware, I think Tennessee, Washington State. They do not have state income tax. So, if you spend at least 11 months outside of the country, outside of the U.S., in a year, you do not have to pay state income tax. So if you are paying state income tax with your remote job, for example, you can get a return on all that money if you spend at least 11 months out of the year out of the country. Now, federal tax, they're still going to tax you. You still have to pay your federal tax. Now, there may be ways where you can get some of that back depending on how much you make. I don't know all the exact numbers, but if you make so much, they will only tax you for so much, and then the rest you'll get back. But that's money made within the U.S. If you make money outside of the U.S., I do not believe they can tax you. But just so you know, I'm back now. So the U.S. government has a stronghold on their citizens. So if you move to another country and open a bank account, that bank is required to let the U.S. government know that this U.S. citizen is opening up a bank account with us. Required. It is a requirement. The U.S. government requires these countries to do that. So for some of you who are interested or planning on opening up a bank account in the Dominican Republic or in Panama or in Brazil or some of these other countries, that bank is required to notify the U.S. government that this U.S. citizen is opening up a bank account. That's how it works. So there is no escaping the wrath of the U.S. government. So definitely make sure you are doing things legally to prevent any issues with the U.S. government. So again, to wrap all this up, my opinion, my humble opinion, is that you should consider getting a second citizenship if you plan on spending an extensive amount of time outside your home country. In addition, with that said, I mean, that also includes that, I mean, to get a citizenship, you got to get a permanent residency first in most cases. So that means that if you plan on going someplace and spending an extensive amount of time there, depending on the country, a lot of countries have language requirements. So if you're coming to the Dominican Republic, you can get by without knowing hardly any Spanish. Even you got to take a Spanish test, an oral test. I heard they offer interpreters and all that. So it's just like a process to check the box, right? But if you are moving to some of these European countries, such as Germany, you got to learn German. If you're going to do this process in another country like Thailand, you got to learn Thai. If you're doing this in Brazil or Portugal, you got to learn Portuguese. So, yeah, with that said, you definitely want to make sure that whatever those requirements are, for you to get a citizenship in that country, you need to make sure that you can meet those requirements when you get to that point. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I hope you all got something out of this video. Please give me a like, share, subscribe, comment. You got any questions? You have any comments about this video? About should you consider getting a second citizenship? Like I said, for the 8th time, yes. Which means that you should consider getting a permanent residency if you plan on spending an extensive amount of time outside your home country. So you are fascinated with Southeast Asia and you want to consider going to the Philippines. Yes, I recommend find out how can I get a permanent residency off the bat. Just how can I get a permanent residency? Boom, off the bat. What are the requirements? That way you have that permanent residency. You may not even need to spend more than a month or a couple of days of the year in that country. And you still are eligible to apply for citizenship when your time is up. Why not have that permanent residency in your back pocket, and then when you're eligible for citizenship, and in the Philippines, English is an official language. Yes, there's also Tagalog, but English is an official language. So that may work out for you. There's no language requirement. So you should consider that. Or if you want to go to some other country where it doesn't have a strict requirements for you to stay long so many years some time out of the year, you should look into that. Most definitely. So consider that permanent residency in another country. Consider that getting a second citizenship. You got any questions, let me know. Leave a comment, share, subscribe, like, and thank you for tuning in with Profane Guide. Peace.